The best year for video games there has ever been. That's what I've heard repeatedly about 2023, and you know, it's hard to argue. I can scarcely recall a year as jam-packed with releases, both big and small, with such a wide range of visions and this high a bar of quality. Picking only 10 has been a challenge, and I do want to celebrate those games. I am going to run through my top 10 and tell you why I love them, because 2023 has been a tough year, and games have been a consistent, welcome escape during a time when my own personal life has been full of turmoil and grief. However, it's precisely because games don't exist in a vacuum that I'm compelled to talk not just about the positive, but also touch on the increasingly worse conditions that surround them. Throughout 2023, there has been an unprecedented number of layoffs, with thousands upon thousands in this industry losing their livelihoods thanks to the rampant greed of corporations and studios. While we celebrated incredible release after incredible release, those soaring high reviews were constantly accompanied by news that the talented people behind them were being fired en masse. Layoffs after layoffs after layoffs, seemingly without end. Capitalism is never good, but it's been uniquely grotesque to see an industry soak up the praise heaped upon the works made by its creative teams while kicking them to the curb in the same instant. Never has it been clearer that there's a serious need for unionization and collective action. And that also applies to those of us who only play the games rather than make them. It's on players to show support and solidarity, to keep the people behind their favourite games in mind and ensure that the industry is not permitted to allow its labourers to go unseen and unheard. So as I run down this list, as I talk about these amazing games, I want you to think about the people who made them and what kind of life you'd like for those who brought us so much joy. I want you to think about the world beyond games, the crises facing peoples and our planet. I want you to get involved in collective action. I want you to unionise, to protest and picket, to strike and boycott. I want us all to think about what we can do to make change. Because I don't want to just keep surviving. I don't want to keep seeing the world get worse. We can enjoy games, we can cherish art, but that can't be all that we do. Support workers, free Palestine, let's do better. Enjoy the rest of the video. And before I get into the top 10 proper, and I get many comments asking where was this game or that game, let me first say, because it's my list, know your list. And second, let's go over those honourable mentions, of which there were quite a few this year. Starting with the games I can't put in because I worked on trailers for them.
Control, this is Sierra Echo 1. No other traces of life here. Control. Coming, Control. That resonance. If I could hear it better.
Then the games I did play, but they just didn't make the top 10.
Quarantine activated.
Fuck the government. We have bolt cutters.
The games I couldn't find the time or money for.
Team, he said. And I'm doing it. I'm coming.
I've been at this a long time. When there's a treasure this big, I make it my business to know about it.
The one game that will be on here once it leaves early access.
Oh no.
The game I'll become obsessed with in January 2024.
His treasure was lost and his crew was tossed. Now is the day cursed pirates have their way.
And the best coffee table I've ever seen in a video game. What they should have called Wolong Fallen Dynasty is Bromance of the Three Kingdoms. Some might call this a Souls-like, but this is pure dudes rot, a dark fantasy spin on the Three Kingdoms fiction that pits a gallery of bros against a supernatural evil which pits man against man, and can only be overcome by the bond of friendship. Then, with the help of a top-tier character creator, you get to make and insert your own little badass to be best friends with a series of historical characters who are wheeled out like cameos in a Marvel film, except with less ironic winks to the camera and more pure earnest lads. In stark contrast to so many of these kind of games, the action RPG genre now living eternally in Dark Souls' shadow, Wolong doesn't just encourage cooperation, it makes it practically mandatory. Even if you're no calling on the help of friends or strangers online, missions frequently put an ally at your side. It's nice. The story doesn't have a lot going on, but is charming thanks to a cast of sincere characters. Just play it with the Chinese language audio, the English dub does no do the characters justice. But this is an action game, and while Wolong isn't quite the rich feast that Neo 2 was, it still carries on Team Ninja's recent winning streak, thanks to a seriously slick ballet of blows. There's no stamina, no rolling around, waiting for windows of attack. This is all about flow, deflecting and parrying, where attacking and defending all overlap. You have a spirit bar that can run negative or positive depending on how well you can keep up attacks. So long as you can keep stringing moves together, you never have to stop. It's ferocious stuff once you get going. And while it's still challenging, Wolong is keen to empower you. You're a hero in a wuxia-infused action epic, and it gives you the moves to make that a reality. It's never on the level of Team Ninja's finest or From Software's latest, but its combat is among the best to ever do it. That and its sincere tone made it some of the most fun I had with a video game this year.
This is a MediaMate, and it contains a bunch of 5 and a quarter inch discs. There's a lot of classics in here, including Wolfenstein and Beyond Castle Wolfenstein, which inspired us later. And just behind that is the game, Karateka.
Video game preservation is an ever-growing concern, with many important games lost to time as most game companies take absolutely zero stewardship of their libraries. Whether they're locked away on forgotten hardware or playable only through complex emulation, there are untold number of games unavailable to most audiences. And even when they are brought back to life and updated, they're often revived as imperfect or misguided remasters. So the making of Karateka is a very special package, one that doesn't just combine every version of Karateka, including a new remaster, but places them in an interactive documentary format that tracks the prolific game's development and influence. There's an obvious lineage here through to creator Jordan Mechner's follow-up Prince of Persia, and the cinematic platform genre that spawned Another World, Oddworld, Inside, The Eternal Castle. Seriously, go play The Eternal Castle, it's the fucking greatest. And even this year's Planet of Lana all owe a clear debt to Karateka. But the influence extends so far beyond its own genre that it's difficult to quantify what a sea change the game was. Yet the making of Karateka not only explains that clearly, it tells it in such a thorough and earnest way, while packaging all its elements up in a slick, clear timeline that includes behind-the-scenes materials, interviews, and even commentary tracks for the games. Remember commentary tracks? It is the kind of exhaustive treatment you hope many classic games get, especially as we increasingly live in a world where good behind the scenes stuff becomes rarer and rarer. It might be a game from decades ago, but in this package it becomes a thoroughly modern item that points a way forward for preservation. Don't miss it.
Oh shit. This is bad. Why do I feel so fucking good?
It's been a long while since we've had a Max Payne game, and even longer since we've had a good one. And I think the coolest thing about El Paso Elsewhere is it is the most unexpected revival of the format. Sure, there's bullet time, and diving through the air while firing 2 pistols, but there's also an interdimensional hotel and vampires. Perhaps it's not so odd given creator of Max Payne Remedy's trajectory towards the strange with games like Control, but by virtue of its indie budget, El Paso Elsewhere is leaner and more economic than its inspirations. It's a game sharp enough to get to the point where Control or Max Payne 3 lose the thread long before they reach the end. All the narrative clarity in the world won't do an action game much good if it doesn't also kick ass, and thankfully El Paso Elsewhere is a great little thrill ride. Just about inventive enough to stave off repetition, it throws you through one dilapidated labyrinth after another, blasting stranger and stranger foes, while our hero serves up a narration that swears between absurd pulp and surprisingly poignant, all while the soundtrack pounds like a werewolf on the walls. And if any game is measured by the quality of its shotgun, and I really do operate by this standard, then El Paso Elsewhere passes with flying colours. The game's hero calls it a one-way trip, but hell, it's one worth taking. Cocoon is a game that makes me feel a way I don't often get from games these days. It conjured up feelings of Oddworld, or when I first dove into Halo Combat Evolved all the way back in the day. That sense of stepping out into something alien and unknown, where you have to learn the roles of this new world. Games, for better and for worse, feel like a lot of problems have been quote-unquote solved. And so I'm often playing games where the rules and expectations remain the same. Which is no to imply that Cocoon is some sort of archaic, frustrating mess. Far from it. It's extraordinarily elegant in communicating its strange logic without words or dialogue. Guidance comes only from intuition and implication, yet I seldom find myself stuck for any significant amount of time. In fact, I move through its world of insect-like machines at a steady pace, adapting to each strange new sight and sound. Cocoon is a testament to the incredible ways art can immerse us in the odd, and I adored getting to solve its weird wee puzzles and tackling its cool bosses. But its central mechanic, shifting in and out of these world orbs, never ceased to impress. I mean it in the best possible way that Cocoon was a hard game to describe to people because it takes so many strange things and buys you into them completely. It's truly unique, and for that alone deserves your attention. Perhaps the best thing I can say about Phantom Liberty is that there are action sequences in it that feel important to the story. I say this because, alongside a dozen other problems, the base game suffered from numerous pointless turret sections and tedious shootouts. more than just benefiting from the 2.0 update, which significantly improved the fundamentals of the game's combat and RPG elements. Phantom Liberty weaves those sequences much more tightly into the narrative. Your battles here have emotional heft in a way few of the base game's fights ever did. And it highlights what makes Phantom Liberty so potent, because the best bits of the substantial side story are the same kind of things that were great in the base game. Plunging V into a world of espionage and paranoia, in the city within a city of Night City's Dogtown. Phantom Liberty takes a break from a corporate dystopia to explore the rotten heart of nationalism and statecraft. What begins as a job to rescue the president of the new United States quickly becomes V sinking into a political quagmire of hidden intentions and power plays. The main story is engrossing, but it's learning the depths and motivation of the questline's leads, troubled netrunner Somi and dedicated field agent Solomon Reed, as well as their own difficult relationship with each other, that makes this special. The fact that the weakest parts of the base game are also made to feel far more essential here elevates this DLC to one of Cyberpunk's finest parts. The real reason this is up here though is the closing hours of my playthrough. The final mission you get depends on your choices, but I'm so glad of the road I went down. Both because it's a cool sequence in its own right, paying off so much of the underlying tension between V and the new USA, and because it's provided a final cathartic epilogue to V and Johnny Silverhand as characters. In the end, my V gave her all so someone else had a shot of freedom and an escape from their fate. And you know, to say fuck you to the government while they did it. A showcase for Cyberpunk's best parts and a serious improvement for many of its weaker ones, Phantom Liberty and its characters have stayed on my mind since I finished it. Speaking of games I haven't stopped thinking about, this sort of adaptation of Stanislaw Lem's novel of the same name is a fascinating little slow burn sci-fi story. You could call it Firewatch in space and get halfway there. It's a game about smart people thinking with each other through problems. There's little action to be had here, even if there is plenty of danger. In the shoes of astrobiologist Yasna, under the command of her radio companion Astrogator Novik, you explore the alien world of Regis 3 to rescue your comrades and discover the source of its strange phenomena. Thanks to incredibly tactile analog props and striking visuals, the Invincible engrossed me in its retro-future world from the get-go. Whether it's antenna or the interior of a rover, this is a world I wanted to poke and prod at. That alone made me fall in love with the game, but it was keeping pace with its scientist leads that kept me hooked to the end. The way they discuss the composition of the atmosphere or theorize on the nature of alien structures fascinated me as someone with a keen interest in science. What a rare thing in games it is, where science fiction is so often merely set dressing for action, to engage more directly with big concepts and explore them with deduction and reasoning. The Invincible tackles a lot of big questions about our species' place in the universe and right to exploration, but always from a deeply human place. Yasna is vulnerable, scared, and dealing with being trapped on a desolate alien world. That doesn't stop her being clever and resolved, it just gives her journey real emotional weight. All of which is elevated by the stellar performances by Daisy May and Jason Bowen as Yasna and Novik. Given how much of the story depends on their relationship, the way they round out these characters is vital to why the game works as well as it does. Regis 3 is a character in its own right too, beautiful and foreboding in equal measure. Even as someone who knows the novel, unravelling each part of its unique ecosystem was a wondrous mystery like few I've ever had. If you like 1995's The Dig, you'll probably love this game as much as I did. The Invincible doesn't quite stick the landing, despite a welcomely ambitious conclusion, but the journey has stayed with me all the same. For science fiction lovers, this is an absolute must-play. spent a good chunk of this year travelling. Going to weddings, going to protests, visiting friends and travelling abroad. Throughout all of that, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has been a constant companion. So thanks to the Switch's handheld nature, the game has become tangled up with so many life events and experiences. I've played it over the course of the entire year, a few hours at a time, as a constant ongoing saga, and every episode brought me so much joy. As someone who ultimately bounced off Breath of the Wild, it's surprising how much Tears of the Kingdom won me over. While the construction powers, letting me build numerous staffed contraptions, is undoubtedly a part of that, it's more to do with the broader rethink of Breath of the Wild's template. It retains the hardships of the last game, but infuses them with a degree of creativity much more approachable for those like me who don't have a 200 IQ to come up with those crazy solutions you saw shared on Twitter.com. The main story is mostly uninteresting, but it compelled me thanks to a few key emotional scenes and sequences. Finally getting the Master Sword was just lovely. But in the end, it's the exploration of Hyrule and each little puzzle I'd come across that kept me engrossed throughout the whole year, shaping my link through various outfits, my ever-evolving use of skills and techniques, stretches of being trapped underground thanks to my refusal to use fast travel, and the terrific battles where I tackle a creature far more difficult than I felt I could handle, simply because a nice little NPC asked me to. The fact that Link's acts of heroism didn't have to involve violence, that sometimes you just build a little bridge for someone or give them a lift to their friend, really endeared those adventures to me. It's utterly spectacular throughout too, a miracle to see running on a handheld device, and falling from the sky never ever got old. An impressive RPG and immersive sim, but an even better travelling companion that made every lengthy journey I took this year a wonderful little time. I've been bouldering for about 6 years. It is, to put it simply, my happy place. Plotting routes, trying moves, conquering projects, and getting myself into great shape doing all that has kept me on an even keel through rough times. So it's been fascinating to watch the climbing sport grow in popularity over that time. It's at the Olympics now, but the more invested in good climbing technique I got, the more disappointed I was with the way many games handled it as an afterthought. Not that I need everything to make climbing a detailed, involved thing, but there was scarcely a game that really captured why bouldering is such a compelling sport. But now we have Jusan, and Jusan is brilliant. Jusan finds a nice middle ground between an experience clearly informed by bouldering enthusiasts and one which is approachable to those who have never climbed a day in their life. Its controls are just nuanced enough and its stamina bar just limiting enough that you have to engage with your climbing routes beyond a superficial level. The thing that really impressed me was comparing my time with friends who played and seeing how I played far more efficiently with my stamina, plotting out fewer moves when tackling a section of rock wall. And if this was all Jusan was, that would still be an achievement. But it's also a beautiful adventure that meditates on humanity's ability to adapt as well as to destroy, with her protagonist setting out to climb a humongous plateau in the middle of a dried up ocean, all to deliver a strange creature to the top. It's a story that revels in its simplicity and with remarkable restraint doesn't try to yank on the heartstrings or go overboard with the drama. The drama rests entirely in the climbing itself, with each new section of the plateau offering up unique challenges, like combating the wind or making use of little rock insects. There's passion and heart in Jusan. It's easily the best game Don't Nod has ever done. On more than one occasion, it actually took my breath away. And as an avid climber, it scratched an itch I've been dying for a game to get right. This is the new gold standard, and I hope other games take inspiration from one of this year's best titles. what's even left to be said about this behemoth at this point? I always thought it would go big. There have been precious few Bioware-esque RPGs in recent years, and Bioware themselves seem trapped in development hell. So I thought, yeah, there's a desire for this. But even I am astounded by the way Baldur's Gate 3 became one of the year's biggest games. And to Larian's credit, I feel I was more excited for this as a follow-up to Divinity Original Sin 2 than I was to Baldur's Gate 2. In every conceivable way, this builds on the studio's last game, serving up an immersive sim where narrative and sandbox design collide in an RPG that tells a rip-roaring yarn with a cast of well-realised characters within and without your party. It's imaginative, playful, horny, and a billion other things that rewards creativity and curiosity at every turn. An impossibly dense game that really does elevate the scope for a genre that's never lacked it. In so many measurable ways, it is a true one-of-a-kind. But none of that would get Baldur's Gate 3 to this spot on my list. No, everything that makes this game truly special is to do with a little thing called the Dark Urge. The Dark Urge is an optional origin. Unlike the others, which put you in the shoes of what otherwise are one of the regular party characters, you still create a custom character. The difference is they're given a mysterious backstory where they know nothing of their past, but are possessed of an insatiable bloodlust that drives them to do violent, sadistic acts. I can't overstate that the Dark Urge adds so much to the game, so thoroughly reshapes its narrative that I am as astounded as I am impressed that developer Larian made this optional. My absolute favourite moments of Baldur's Gate 3 only exist in a Dark Urge playthrough. What it did for me was pit me against that voice, the one that tells me I'm being boring in RPGs, that I'm missing out on more interesting stories because I prefer to always walk a morally sound path. Admittedly, with most RPGs, it says more about them, that choices fall along an arbitrary good and evil line, but with Baldur's Gate 3, I found my character in a constant struggle for control of themselves. I had to ponder if denying this bloodlust outright wasn't risking more terrible outbursts down the line. I had to deal with what this terrible part of my character's psyche did while they slept. I had to confront the fact that regardless of what I did, there was blood on my hands. And fighting to do the right thing, in spite of all of that, made the struggle of being a good person fresh and compelling instead of perfunctory. It furthers the game's themes of identity, of the battle to maintain who you are in the face of powerful empires and entities. In Baldur's Gate 3, the cost of failure isn't death, but personhood, the very loss of self. And the Dark Urge storyline brings that to the forefront, embellishes all the other plotlines, and makes the story far more personal than it otherwise is. I can't call it the cherry on top of this rich RPG cake because the truth is, to me, in a similar way to how Los's storyline added to Divinity Original Sin 2, it's a vital ingredient in making this game what it is. When I think of Baldur's Gate 3, it's not the impressive mechanics or sandbox design that comes first to mind. It's not even its great cast. It's the moments that emerge from the Dark Urge storyline, where there's a genuine sense of sacrifice to doing the right thing. And it's for that reason Baldur's Gate 3 is one of my absolute favourite RPGs of all time.
Climb the wall.
Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is a game in a world of motion capture driven stories that manages to give its cast complete, compelling arcs while existing as little more than voices and logos in a Zoom call. It's a game which doesn't have an open world, but favours contained missions that usually take no longer than like 5 or 10 minutes to complete. And yes, Let's players compile hundreds of mech configurations and pit them in an increasingly bleak but spectacular battles as they sift through the ashes of the planet Rubicon. It kicks fucking ass. These set pieces and mech duels, thanks to the perfect harmony of sick visuals, a killer score, and weighty, propulsive combat, are simply the coolest a game has ever made me feel. It is the perfect encapsulation of so much of what makes the mech genre compelling, capturing both the immense scale, speed, and skill that makes it a striking fantasy. One that facilitates all kinds of machines, from the sleek, colourful designs that would feel at home in Gundam, to clunky industrial titans that could march in the final battle of the Matrix Revolutions. All of them somehow accommodated by Armored Core's specific art direction. Despite how exhilarating it all is, there's an innate bleakness that doesn't get lost amidst the scorching laser beams and storms of homing missiles. You serve corporations acting as interstellar nation-states, raising armies sworn to their doctrine, warring over a strange fuel source known as coral. The oppressive ruins of Rubicon hang over every fight in the form of cities moulded into networks of machine pipes blotting out the sky. Walking tanks the size of mountains leave massive craters with each footstep. Occasionally you'll catch a glimpse of a small walkway or car at the feet of your mech and recontextualize its scale all over again. It's not a world built for humans, but one where reality has been transformed into a colossal machine of extraction, where existence is beholden only to the inhumane demands of capital. But Armored Core 6 has stayed with me because there is some light in the darkness, a few embers that haven't gone out. None of this game is subtle with its themes, yet that doesn't detract from the resonance offered up by fighting for human connection, however fragile, in the face of the seemingly unstoppable, vast capitalist machine. 2023 has been a year of doing precisely that in the real world. Of all the games I played this year, none spoke to me in this exact moment of time quite like Armored Core, and gave me the catharsis of feeling like, yeah, I believe that we can win. Plus, you know, the POW bunker is the sickest fucking thing that's ever been put in a video game. Hey, thank you so much for watching, and a real extra massive thank you to my patrons for supporting me through this year. This has been a really difficult year on a lot of levels, and it's been really difficult to keep up my work, and this Game of the Year video was a complete labour of love. And if you're not a patron, and you'd like to be, if you'd like to support my work into 2024, where I'll be turning over something of a new leaf, then please head to my Patreon. There's a link in the description, and there's an address on screen right now.
What's